All right, welcome to another edition of the Sports Guys. This is our post Super Bowl reaction show. Really excited to be with you guys tonight. Last week we came to you with our preview show. We went through a lot of detail, but tonight we're really going to break down the game, all the aspects of it, all the details, the stats. We're going to go into all the angles, how it happened. How you doing, Robbie?
I'm doing pretty well. Pretty well. A lot of strange stuff going on this week, but honestly, I got to go to the mountains with my brother. Happy birthday, big guy.
Hey, thanks.
You don't look a day over 40.
I appreciate it.
So happy birthday. That's a huge day we have here for us. And I got to spend the weekend with you in the mountains, which was amazing with my boys and just so many family members that are special. And so that's what I'm up to is coming off that weekend, enjoying that, the Super Bowl. I zoomed home, made it home for kickoff. So that was a really nice weekend, honestly.
Yeah, I had a great time. We did some skiing, we did some tubing, we had family time, we did games, and it's always just great to see everybody and great to spend that time. So, and I did the same. I zoomed home so I could get into my chair and be there for the kickoff and be able to kind of watch every single play, which I did. And I've never been so surprised in my life by this Super Bowl. I really thought it was going to be a close game. I thought whoever did win, I thought either team could win, but I thought it would be a close game. I thought this was a slug match between the best quarterback and best coach in the game and the best roster in the game. I thought that was the tete-a-tete.
That was how it got framed for sure.
What I didn't see coming was a game similar to the one that the Chiefs played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple years ago when Mahomes looked completely flustered the whole game. He had 3 starters out at that time and had no time at all and was just smothered the entire game. And of course, he lost that game to Tom Brady, and that was Tom Brady's last Super Bowl. So this game was almost worse. I mean, it just was the most pathetic half of football I've ever seen played by a championship team going for a three-peat. Yeah, they could not move the ball. They had 1 first down, and it was on the first play of the game. They had 23 yards total for the entire half, 23 yards, whereas the Eagles had 24 points in the first half. And it was just a complete bludgeoning from beginning to end. So what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, so I was surprised by the actual score only a little bit. I did call for it to be a 2-score victory by the Eagles because I knew that they knew they couldn't let it be them up by 3 with Patrick Mahomes with the ball and he has a minute left. They knew they'd lose that game. So they had to get such a lead that Patrick Mahomes couldn't be Patrick Mahomes. And that was the game plan. So I always felt like if it was a close game, Chiefs were going to win. If it was more than 2 scores, Eagles were going to win. And I predicted Eagles were going to win by more than 2 scores because I felt like that roster is really loaded. And that's obvious to everyone. But what's incredible about it is it's got a lot of youth in there. The last 3 drafts have built most of the team. So what does that mean for you? They're all under rookie contracts. So you can load up with an incredible free agent like Saquon because you can afford him. And here's another thing. If you point to the early part of the season, that's when Cooper DeJean was in his 2nd game. I mean, even the last game, Cooper DeJean had his 22nd birthday out there. Oh, no, this in this game right here. So you have all these young Eagle players that are outstanding, and they were huge home runs in the draft. So the talent level was just stacked everywhere. And that's why I thought they were going to win the game by more than 2 scores, even though I had a lot of faith in the Chief hierarchy. The coach is the best coach in football. The quarterback is outstanding, like unbelievable, and probably the 2nd best ever. And they got pieces on there, but I think they're missing some things that make them elite. So, and they were going for something. I said it in the beginning of the season. They're going for a three-peat. It's not going to happen. It's too hard. It's just too hard to do. By the time you get there at the end, you're like a mash unit. You're, and what I'm trying to say is you got to run a gauntlet. And so
you had Chris Jones get hurt in the 2nd quarter. And
I mean, he's like 3 defensive players by himself. So it's the kind of thing where, it's not that it was predictable per se, but there was a good likelihood this was going to happen.
So you did predict it. You were right. I predicted the opposite. I predicted that they would be losing by 3 points to the Eagles in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes left. Mahomes would get the ball and he would drive them down methodically, and with 30 seconds left, he would throw a touchdown to
And
Hollywood Brown or Xavier Worthy, something like that.
if it had been close, I think you're absolutely right. And so the question was it going to be close, or were the Eagles going to come out and just steamroll them and make sure the lead was big enough to where they could relax? And that's exactly what happened. So I thought it was going to be 31-21. I think that's right from last week. And it's not that I prognosticated it or anything like that. It's why. Why did I think that was the likeliest outcome? Because I thought the talent on the Eagles side would roll up some points and then stay out ahead and know that you can't let it get within 3. You can't let it get within 7. Mahomes is going to drive down and get it done.
It's funny you say that. In the post-game interview, that's exactly what Hurts said. He said the game plan was we knew we couldn't get into a close game with the defending champs.
If it was a close game, the Chiefs would have won it.
He said we needed to have a big lead and we needed to come out strong and fast in the first half. What's funny is in the pregame interview, Mahomes said the exact opposite. He said, we have to have a fast start. He said, in every Super Bowl I've been in, we've been down at least 10 points in the first half, in every single one, even the ones he won. And he said, we can't have that again. We cannot have a slow start today. That's what he said.
Listen, just because the Chiefs go down in the first half, that doesn't mean they can't come back. So it needed to be such a margin that it was a morale breaker. Like the Eagles knew that in order to break the morale of the Chiefs and make them not believe, we needed an insurmountable lead. And so they just went at it. Defense scored touchdown. They were getting turnovers. It was, I've rarely seen that level of pressure on a quarterback ever in a Super Bowl.
It was such an ass whooping in the first half. He couldn't even get off his screen passes, which usually took 1 second to develop. He didn't even have a second.
And the funniest part was the Eagles were getting it done with rushing 4 against 5 blocking.
I know.
So they could double Jalen Carter on every play if they wanted. And the Eagles players, 3 of them would meet at the quarterback on almost every play.
I know.
It wasn't even like they were penetrating one weak point. It was an onslaught on every play almost. And so that's what got them their big lead. And I did feel like if it was a close game, the Chiefs would probably find a way to win it. But if you could throw the Chiefs out of their belief system with a big lead, then you're just going to keep going and keep punishing them. So that's what happened.
What do you think happened to the Chiefs' offensive line? I was confused the whole game why they couldn't block anybody. It was incredible.
I don't think so. Here's what I'm saying. The Eagles are a young team. So what I'm saying is they have rookies starting. They have second-year guys starting. They're getting better each game. They're improving before your eyes. I don't think the Chiefs' offensive linemen are improving every week, So what I'm saying is the film that you watched on the Eagles, if you watched it from early in the season, is not going to be relevant because the Eagles are so much better now.
As a matter of fact, last year they were the 30th ranked defense. That's why they ended up flaming out in the playoffs. This year, the first 6 games of the year, they were the 30th ranked defense again. So,
they started off weak and
terrible.
poor, and Vic Fangio has done an excellent job this year. It's fantastic.
And now they're just a wrecking crew. So, I mean, to me, the MVP of the game was Vic Fangio and Howie Roseman, who's the GM of the team, who constructed the best roster in football by far.
It was Howie Roseman. You know why? Because he knew he needed one special piece, and he was willing to pay for it. And he paid a lot of money for Saquon. And that was a gamble. 27-year-old running back. You never know when they're higher than 25. You'll pay them, but to pay them the top dollar is real scary.
But you can do that when
they have so many players that are getting rookie contracts,
right?
Because the last three drafts that Howie Roseman has put together are works of art that you can afford a special piece that's a difference maker. And by the way, Saquon might not have had the best stats, but everyone knew where he was on every play. He was a difference maker by doing nothing.
He was. He was a
He had
decoy.
half his normal production or less, but they were saying you're gonna make Hurts beat us if you're gonna beat us. And guess what? He did.
He did.
So yeah,
The Chiefs pulled off the exact game plan they needed to, which was to stack the box,
pretty
force
much.
Hurts. And I actually didn't think Hurts could do it, so I was wrong. He
I did
proved that
because
he
the
could win the
offensive
game.
line could give him the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did believe it.
Especially early in the game when he threw that pick, I was like, "There's the Hurts I was expecting."
Yeah.
And then the rest of the game, he was just lights out. He just played fantastic and deserved the MVP, by the way. So the Chiefs' defense, I didn't think played that badly. I mean, if you think about it, 17
Yeah.
points were given up by their offense. So that takes it down to 23. You should be able to win the game at 23 points. And
I think
that,
the two factors that really drove the victory were the sacks and pressures. Sorry, that's one stat. Sacks and pressures together was a nightmare for Mahomes. Completely threw off all the timing on all the offensive plays. With one player exception, everyone underperformed. And then the other stat besides sacks and pressures was running the ball. Like it wasn't even close. You could certainly add in turnovers. The turnover advantage, of course, went to the team that whooped the other. But, Hurts running the ball, he became the substitute for Saquon.
you remember
And
one of the things we talked about was making the Chiefs one-dimensional.
yeah,
And they had one running back get 12 yards and one running back get 9 yards. It's just
yep.
not going to get it done in Super Bowl.
It's not acceptable.
There's no
And
running back.
that's really where you start rebuilding is the offensive line. You have to look at that performance and say, the last Super Bowl, the Chiefs got clobbered because they had three backups in there. Three of their starters were down. They can't say that this year. They just got whooped because the Eagles were better. It wasn't that we were into our backups and it wasn't a fair fight.
Right.
It was your starter went against ours, and year 4 we're beating our 5.
That's right.
So,
And by the way, all 4 of those guys that whipped them are all on rookie contracts.
right. They're all underpaid, dramatically underpaid.
Right. So,
So
3 years from now, 3 of the 4 of them won't be on the team. They'll be on the Jaguars. They'll be on the, they'll go get paid somewhere. That's what'll happen.
maybe, and the Eagles might be able to afford a little bit their way, but obviously Saquon probably won't be there 4 years from now. Who knows? Maybe he will, but you never know. I
They'll
got
run it
faith in
back.
Roseman after the year he had.
Me too. They'll run it back for another year or 2, but eventually those guys, all the studs, will want to get paid. The Jalen Carters
Yeah.
of the world.
I think if you look at Howie Roseman's track record, 3 drafts have been remarkable, and I don't have I don't have any doubt that he's gonna do that again.
Do you think he should
And
be executive of the year?
no question. I mean, the only other person who could give him a run was the guy for the Lions.
Mhm.
That roster got put together in a remarkable way, but they had injury problems. Every team got hurt some, but I've never seen something like the Lions and have a winning record like that. I've never seen teams with 11 defensive 9 defensive starters on IR.
Right.
That's usually a team that's in last.
That's right.
That's never a team that's winning. So
The team that used
what the
to
Lions did was remarkable, and what the Lions GM has done is remarkable.
the team
But
that wins
they
the
just
Super
had
Bowl usually is able to survive that mass unit situation. Usually.
somewhat, the Eagles had some stomach issues and problems throughout the week with sickness. So that's another thing. People probably underestimated how healthy they would be at game time. Everyone knows Jalen Carter's a beast, but was he going to be a beast after being sick all week with the flu or whatever? That was an unknown, and that maybe gave them an opportunity to underestimate him because of his assuming that he's not going to be feeling very well
What's
or not very
amazing
powerful.
is he did not register a sack. He did not register a tackle. He basically was not on the score sheet at all, but he still was disruptive.
But he was harassing
He
and
was still disruptive.
smacking Mahomes. He had one of the meanest hits on Mahomes to the ground that I've
Mhm.
seen in a long time,
Mhm.
and not get called. And he was a beast, and they were double teaming him, and so that freed up the other guys to just have fresh runs at Mahomes.
True.
At a certain point, I felt sorry for Mahomes because
I did too. He
There
was
wasn't
just
much
getting
he could
clipped.
do, and he was getting hit by multiple guys at the same time. Like it was a beatdown.
It's interesting. They had the perfect rush. They would rush upfield, and then they would literally trap him in the pocket where there's nowhere for him to go. Because usually he'll squirt out
Yeah,
and get like 10 yards with his legs. He's pretty
yeah.
good running the ball. He couldn't do that in this game. Couldn't get
And
out.
by
And
the
and
way,
then and then he would step up into the pocket, which he tries to do, which is called climb the ladder. He would try to
yeah,
climb the ladder, and there was no ladder. There was
it would
nothing there. It was
collapse.
collapsed.
Well,
Yeah.
the pocket would just close in, and he would get stuck up in there,
Mhm.
and then somebody would grab him and throw him on the ground. Um, they should have run the ball. I mean, they needed to find a way to do that. The reason is because the way the Eagles were rushing the ball, charging, there's a way that they can run past the running back who's got the ball
Mhm.
going that way.
Yep.
And that's how you're going to be registering first downs. You're going to actually change the way the Eagles would have kept rushing the passer if they had to keep in mind the rush. They were running so infrequently that the Eagles knew that the Chiefs were passing. And so their whole thing was get to the quarterback in 2.5 seconds, you know?
Right. Right.
And so when you're one dimensional in the National Football League, you are toast against the best teams. You can
That's
pull
right.
it off against the worst teams, but you're not going to be victorious against the best teams, the best defenses. It's just not going to work being
Have
one
we ever
dimensional.
seen a more flawed 15-2 team? I think this was a flawed team from the beginning, even though they're 15-2. They were
I always
winning.
felt like it was kind
They
of
were
mediocre.
winning with great coaching, great schemes,
They were winning on
great
blocking field
plays.
goals. Like,
No, but they were also winning with play schemes, scheming guys
yeah,
open,
yeah, yeah. True.
and they were playing teams that were incomplete, so they could pull it off
And
by 3
also
points.
not very much offense. Like they didn't have much punch, you know?
Mhm.
Um, again, they have holes now. What I recognized was they have some needs, you know? And
No question.
yeah,
They've gotta
so
get a running game. I mean, it's just pathetic to see this Super Bowl team trying to go for a three-peat and they get, 20 yards rushing. It's just
yeah,
in this modern game where it's going back to running the ball again, that's not
yeah.
gonna work.
No.
So, but,
No, I mean,
I enjoyed watching the second half. I think I was impressed the Chiefs didn't give up. They
yeah.
scored some points towards the end. They got, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to try to make it close, but, in the end, Eagles were cruising to victory, and Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and the team, they all get their first ring, so, good
Barkley
for
knew
them.
that the whole Chiefs defensive game plan was stop him. And so he was fine with just a pedestrian night. He knew that they were going to win if Hurts threw the ball, and if it wasn't there, Hurts was going to run the ball. And the entire rush from the Chiefs was meant to bottle up Saquon. And they did that effectively. And they forced the Eagles to beat them another way. And the good teams can win more than one way, and the bad teams can't if, it's not Burrow to Chase, it's not going to happen, or something like
And
that.
did you
So,
see Jalen Hurts can make the big throw, including the
mhm.
long bomb, when he has a perfect pocket, and he had a perfect pocket almost all night.
Yeah. These guys
And
they're the size
Patrick
of buildings.
Mahomes finally got a little bit of a pocket in the fourth quarter and threw 2
Yeah.
touchdowns. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's the difference in the game. Is one team
It,
got pressure and one didn't.
the Eagles moved to more of a bend but don't break. We don't have to rush with such ferocity. We just need to keep everyone in front of us. No big plays. Let them dink and dunk down the field. Um, I almost said chink and chunk. That's not right. Dink and dunk down the field in chunks. And they kind of didn't let them score, but they bent, and they're like, okay, that's fine. I mean, we took so much time. We forced you to take time off. So you could feel that big lead was sufficient. And so they played defense accordingly.
I'm not a huge fan of the prevent defense. I mean, every time you go into prevent, you
I
see what
know.
happens. I mean, you give
But
Mahomes another quarter, who
yeah,
knows what he would have done.
that's right. But I never felt like the lead was doable. I mean, it
Mhm.
was it was starting the fourth quarter, and it was still a blowout. That wasn't going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
The
they
other
got some
thing
touchdowns, but
The other thing you notice, not only did Hurts deliver, which I didn't think he could, but he did,
mhm.
but he had every time he saw and looked to his left and saw Devontae Smith one-on-one and looked to his right and saw A.J. Brown one-on-one, I mean, his
Yeah,
eyes lit up because
yeah.
that's what he wants, is those
That's
one-on-one
why
action.
Saquon was far more of a factor than his stats are. If you just look at stats, he looks like a mediocre player in this game.
And
Mediocre.
actually, it's interesting you say that because when they brought Gainwell in for a couple of drives, not only did they shut Gainwell down, but they started defending the pass better. So you're right.
Mhm.
When Gainwell was in there, he's not the threat that Saquon is.
They were so aware of Saquon that their goal was to not let Saquon beat them. And the Eagles said, "That's fine. We got other ways of beating you." So,
Mhm.
it
Well,
was a whipping in the trenches.
it
The
was.
Eagles' defensive line mauled the Chiefs, and the Eagles' offensive line mauled the Chiefs.
What are the things we talked about? Line of scrimmage, pressure,
Turnovers.
turnovers, penalties.
Mhm.
Eagles won every single category.
It was even on penalties, and everyone thought, the Chiefs always get all the calls in the Super Bowl and all that. It was even. I think it was like 8-8 or something like that. 8 penalties each or something like that. Very close in yardage as well. So that was not the factor in the game. Um, all the yardage stats are pretty significant, but time of possession pretty significant. But
And the 6 sacks were just, devastating along with
sacks
all the
were
penalties.
devastating, and there were not only 6 sacks, but there were 11 QB hits.
Right.
They hit Mahomes 11 times.
Mhm.
So
Right.
it was nuts. It was wild to watch such domination in the trenches, and
Mhm.
everything fed off that.
What were your thoughts about 70% of the stadium was Philadelphia Eagle fans? Is that a testament to the fact that they just travel? Is it that they're that hungry
I
for
th
a
I
championship?
think
Or what is
there was energized. People are tired of the Chiefs. They want parity. They. I don't think that I've heard some podcast people say that dynasties do better when you have dynasties, the Cowboys and the Niners. I don't think so. I think when your city's in it, if you're from Minnesota or Cleveland and you have a chance, it's better.
or like
So
the
I think
Washington
parity is
fans
better.
Washington fans were in the wilderness for 35 years, and now all of a sudden they feel renewed.
Right. So if you have parity, teams will constantly go up and down. And if you have dynasties, then only like 4 teams can ever win the Super Bowl. And this year we actually had very little parity because we had only 3 new teams in the playoffs, which was far lower than last year.
Mhm.
But I don't know.
It's true. Let's go take a look at the material. All right. Well, next, we just want to take a word from one of our sponsors. That's Jersey Mike's. They're sponsoring tonight's special episode. And I just want to talk a little bit about this amazing sub you've got behind me here. This is the original Italian, the number 13 on their menu. You guys can find it if you go to jerseymikes.com and look it up. And actually, on their website, you can order right now, and they will actually deliver to you in most regions of the country. In addition, you can look at their app and order on there as well, or you can go to one of their local stores. So, Robbie, what do you think about Jersey Mike's?
Oh, I've liked it since before 2004, I think it was. I love that place. My sons ask for it all the time. I've been getting a steak sub there for a long time, and it's so delicious. I just had one about 20 minutes ago. I had the best experience. The people were friendly. It was hot. They got my order right. Tastes amazing. I couldn't be happier. It's so good.
That's
I love it.
that's great.
I had this.
I
It's
love
so
I love
good.
your sandwich. I love my sandwich. One of the things I like about this original Italian, the giant version, as you can see the giant version behind me, is I'll often order the giant, take it home. I'll eat half of it, and I'll put half in my fridge for later. And so that's
Yeah.
a really good way to do it. So
And I just looked, and mine's only 700 calories. The one that I like. So it's fantastic. It's pretty good for you. It's delicious, filling, and the experience is amazing. The people are real friendly. And I just found a new location tonight. I've been going to one that's even a touch further away. It's so close to my house. So the place is amazing,
that's
and the
awesome.
boys love it. My whole family loves it.
Well, guys, all you guys watching tonight, order yourself some Jersey Mike's right now, or download the app and do it a little bit later, or go to a store very soon in your area. And thank you so much. All right, so this is our Super Bowl 59 reaction show. Eagles are the champs. This is our episode 49. We have a couple really epic photos here. The first one is Jalen Hurts walking off with the confetti coming down. It's green and white confetti. And what's interesting, a couple years ago when he lost the Super Bowl to Mahomes, the confetti was obviously Kansas City Chiefs color, and he was looking
Mhm.
very sad and forlorn. So this time, a couple years later, obviously very happy with what happened. Probably the most epic play in the game is the one there on the bottom with Cooper DeJean on his
Mhm.
22nd birthday. The
Mhm.
first round pick, they got him at number 23. You and I called it out in the draft special that he
Oh
was going to
yeah.
go deal, and he just had a huge impact in this game in many ways. But this one was just devastating gut punch when he picked this off and took it to the house. And then, of course, you have that picture there of the Super Bowl champs and their celebration towards the end of the game as they were counting off the seconds to their first championship in a while. Any
Yeah.
thoughts about some of these picks?
I mean, it was a joyous night for the Eagles. They did it on both sides of the ball. The trenches certainly won it, but the the DBs for the Eagles were all over the Chiefs, and so it was a good whipping. And hats off to the Chiefs for having good leadership to keep them. Nobody quit. Like they fought hard. It was such an insurmountable lead that you knew they weren't going to be able to win. They just were just trying to keep it close, and you never know. And they did that. They kind of came back a little at the end there, and
Right.
and the Eagles were really more about the clock than anything else. So
It was fun listening to Nick Wright today because he's a huge Chiefs guy, and he's been so happy the last couple of years because they keep winning Super Bowls. And of course, today they had a whole special trying to roast him on, the Eagles crushing his Chiefs.
yeah,
And
he's
he
a
was
big
talking
fan.
about how at halftime he just had to go out and go for a brisk walk around the corner and just like walk around and clear his head because they're sitting there 24-0 down and they have 23 yards of offense.
Yeah,
And he's
it was
like, I just
unbelievable.
didn't know really what to do as a fan. He said, I just needed to walk around a little bit. And, so that's what he did. So if you look, there's a controversy on that logo to the right there, the Super Bowl logo. There's this controversy that's been brewing apparently ever since they shown this logo about 2 months ago, that the NFL was telegraphing that they wanted the Chiefs to win because of the coloring of the Super Bowl logo.
Yeah,
What do you think about that controversy? Is there anything to it?
that's silly. People have too much free time on the internet.
Why didn't they make this like a red, white, and blue color or something? I wonder.
I don't know. I mean,
Or
just pick
maybe,
a color. That's probably
or maybe
some design
Saints.
person who's on the marketing team. It's
Yeah,
that doesn't even know anything about football. Maybe I
right.
don't know. It doesn't mean anything.
The Chiefs haters are really funny. They look for
They are
any
funny.
conspiracy.
They got the microscope out for any non-call, call, whatever. It's
Yeah,
always
that's right.
some grand
That's right.
conspiracy that worked out perfectly, by the way.
That's right. Here's a couple other epic photos here. Jalen Hurts, of course, he won the Super Bowl MVP, his first. There's a great photo of them there on the bottom left of him rushing. He got 72 yards, really important yards, many
Oh,
times
yeah.
picking up key first downs. Then, of
Yep,
course,
and he got a touchdown too.
then the top there is him getting the touchdown. We call it the tush push. In Philly, they call it the brotherly shove. So that's, I
Mhm.
guess, they have their own little term for it. But
Yep.
it's one of the most unstoppable plays in football. And did you notice that he got a full 2 yards deep into the end
Oh,
zone?
yeah,
So
yeah. It's really hard to stop because they execute it properly.
yeah, that's right. And apparently, that's the play that Chris Jones got hurt his neck in
Yeah,
that
that's a
pile.
shame.
Then there's a picture there of Mahomes being really forlorn after his second pick of the day, which was a really bad one. And then finally, a picture of the Eagles all touching the trophy and passing it around among their teammates. I can't imagine how good that feels
Oh, it feels good.
for these guys, most of whom this is their first championship. So
They're all young, like most of those
yeah,
players are in their first 3 years.
yeah, that's right.
So they're
We talked
pumped.
about we talked about that tush push and whether it was really stoppable. And what's interesting is they were able to stop the Bills one, but not the
Well,
Eagles one.
the Bills ran it so differently, with Josh Allen vertical and giving them a big target to hit flying in,
Right, right.
as opposed to getting low and driving forward. It's a totally different play.
Mhm.
There's
Just to
there's
think
there's more similarities. There's fewer similarities than different. There's fewer similarities than differences when you're going to run it that differently.
that Jason Kelsey used to be at the bottom of that pile every time.
Yeah, he
And
was he was one of the reasons why it always worked.
I wonder if he misses it at all.
I don't think he misses the pile.
No, probably not.
No,
Yeah.
he misses the guys and the winning.
So let's look at the stats. We're going to look at offense and defense. This is a 40-22 game. Like we said, Chiefs had a furious comeback in the fourth quarter, but not enough. Mahomes goes 21 for 32 for 257, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, has a QBR of 11, which is pretty darn bad. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. I think this was maybe his worst game in his career, one of the worst. 23 yards at halftime. Literally could not move the ball. They had 1 first down in the first half. And if you look at this final stat line, it doesn't look that bad, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, of course, 17 from 22, much more efficient. 221 for 2 touchdowns. He did have 1 bad pick. It was probably his only really bad throw of the game. They had 1 other throw. They said there was a bad throw that he threw to Goddard that was too high, apparently, and almost got Goddard killed.
Yeah, there were a couple of bad ones, but not many. It was real tight.
They said he literally had like 2 bad throws the whole game, and has a really, really nice rating of 119. In terms of rushing, when you see Patrick Mahomes as the leading rusher, that's a problem. Kareem Hunt couldn't get anything going. P. Ryan and Pacheco, all just very frustrated all day. On the Philly side, of course, Hurts with 72, Barkley with 57. If you had said 25 for 57 at the beginning of the game, I would have said that the Chiefs were going to win. So
there were a couple of stats that indicated that it was a close game, and one was like yards per rush, stuff like that. But they don't really mean anything because they're not in context. You have to look at most of the stats, tell the story. Some of them don't, but most of them do. And what is the context? The context is this: first half versus the rest. First downs in the first half, Philadelphia 13, Kansas City 1. That's an obliteration. And so when you look at the final stats and they're a lot closer, there are a lot of factors for that. One is just run the clock down, try not to get any injuries. If you're Philly, bend but don't break.
Right.
You're giving up yards that you wouldn't if it was really close. So, third downs 2 for 6 as opposed to 0 for 6 for Kansas City. And then yards 179 versus 23. And turnovers. Absolutely. And defense is killing it. And so 24-0 at halftime. I mean, it was a manhandling completely.
And then, in the previous games, Mahomes had some really key runs to pick up first downs, to pick up a touchdown. In this game, Hurts got those runs. He had 72 really important yards and a touchdown. And so, just all the way down the line, it may not look like a bludgeoning, but it was. This was a complete domination. In terms of receiving, the only guy who really had a good game for Kansas City was Xavier Worthy, 8 catches for 157, 2 touchdowns. He had a really solid game. To me, having seen a lot of the Chiefs this year, it just seemed like most of the team was not ready to play. So it seemed like to me, which is very surprising in an Andy Reid team that's had 2 weeks to prepare. They just didn't look like they're ready to play, except for Xavier Worthy. He was the one guy who really popped off the screen.
It's hard when your offensive line is caving in and they're not bringing pressure. It was four guys got in the backfield on every play. So all their plays blew up. It wasn't that they weren't ready. And I don't want to criticize the Chiefs for this because it wasn't a matter of preparation. I think they just underestimated how much better the Eagles' defensive line had gotten throughout the season, and there wasn't much they could do about it. They were going to have to go to max protect just to throw a screen. There was just no room for anything to operate. And if you're only rushing 4, then that means there's a lot of guys in the secondary that are clogging up those running lanes.
It's true. Well,
the Chiefs don't have elite receivers anyway.
And he had 1 second to throw. So
they have good receivers, but their biggest elite receiver, Rashid Rice, is out. So they have nice receivers. Obviously, Xavier Worthy is really fast and had an incredible game. He's the one outlier who overperformed, and then everyone else underperformed. But the reason they underperformed was there was no rhythm because the offense was getting whipped.
Right.
Especially in the first half.
Kelsey had no catches in the first half. He had 4 in the second half for 39 yards. Really pedestrian day for him. I kind of felt like the whole season he kind of looked a little slow.
Yep.
And
he looked like he was playing banged up.
He looked particularly slow in this game. I mean, he really looked old.
I agree.
And I wonder if he's really going to consider retirement in the offseason. I have to think he will.
I think so.
DeAndre Hopkins had a real bad drop in the first half. It was one of the few throws that Mahomes actually got off, was right in his hands for a first down, drops it. He did have 2 nice catches in the second. He caught a touchdown in that last 4 minutes in the furious comeback. Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, all these guys, not a huge impact. So on the Philly side, you have Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown leading the way, both with a touchdown, having pretty solid games. I thought Dotson had a couple really nice catches. He had one actually that was nullified as well. So he had a nice day. Of course, he came over in the trade from the Commanders early in the year. So nice to see him contributing. And then, of course, Saquon Barkley probably had more impact in the pass game than the run game, with 6 catches for 40 yards. Any thoughts generally about the offensive stats other than what we talked about?
I think they just kind of cover it. I mean, some of them got even, closer to evened up. Yardage wasn't that far off by the end. The sacks, the 6 sacks were incredibly important. So the advantage of sacks is like taking away your chance of getting a first down, almost.
Well, and time of possession, we also talked a lot about
time of possession was very lopsided. Red zone 2 for 3 versus 1 for 1 tells you a little bit. But the turnover, pick 6, the defense, both Phillies sides of the ball really dominated in statistics.
If you take away the 3 turnovers that gave them 17 points, it's a 23-22 game. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's. I mean, the turnovers are really the story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Turnovers.
No, but the offense did a lot with the turnovers. Like they scored on both their interceptions.
Right.
So when you get points from turnovers, it's I mean, obviously Cooper took back to the house, but they made them pay when they made mistakes, and so that was kind of unusual for a Reed team.
Yep. This was an incredibly pedestrian day for Mahomes. He said after the game that this didn't come anywhere close to his standards. He said, "I just have to play better next time. This is not my best game," and obviously that's the worst time to have it in the Super Bowl. So he was being pretty gracious to try to shoulder all the blame, but I think that really most of the blame goes on the offensive line. They were just
it wasn't his fault.
They were whipped.
He couldn't operate. He had no room and time to operate. He was running for his life on every play, and there was nobody open because they were getting this pressure with 4 guys. They were winning the math.
Right.
They were winning the statistical advantage. If you rush 4 versus their 5, your extra guy is defending.
And by the way, what's the one thing you can't do against Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes? You can't blitz them. They love when you blitz them. And so the Eagles did not do one blitz the entire day.
They didn't have to blitz.
That tells me Vic Fangio is a really good coach, and he studies film, and he realizes.
But not just that, but he's got some dogs. Like he's like,
we're going to drop 7 into coverage, and we're going to go eat with 4 guys.
But Tom, if you have 4 guys up front who are not pressuring because they're getting blocked by more guys than they're charging with,
right,
which is a lot of the time, most teams don't have a good enough defensive line to pull it off. You're going to have to bring pressure to get in there, and that's going to open up lanes.
That's right.
So if you can whip a team with your front 4, just ask the Giants against the Patriots. Their defensive line was unbelievable and whipped the Patriots' offensive line.
Do you think that if Tom Brady had been in this situation, he would have found out a little earlier than Mahomes did how to do something with this defense that was coming out?
Yeah, they would have had to do max protect.
I just feel like it took way too long, all the way to the 4th quarter, to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. It felt like they were not responding properly.
Yeah. And then were you surprised by Hurts being able to deliver when they stacked the box?
No, because that offensive line gave him the time he needed, and he's deadly when he has time. They needed to pressure Hurts, but also they needed to worry about Saquon. So they chose to worry about Saquon, and they didn't get a tremendous amount of pressure on Hurts. He was able to scamper out and keep the chains going. So,
well, what would you have done? I mean, you can't let Saquon go wild. So
I know
you have to choose your poison, right?
I mean, yeah, if your offensive line is going to whipsaw people like that, there's not much you can do. If your defensive line is going to also do the same thing, then there's not much you can do. And if both your lines are crushing like that, you're going to have a nice big lead, and you can sit back a little bit and let the other team score once or twice and make it look close, but it's not. It's
Is
not
it
close.
safe to say the Eagles would not have been in the Super Bowl without Saquon Barkley? I think the answer is yes.
No question. Over
And
2,000
then
yards rushing.
and then in the Super Bowl itself, they would not have had that same success without Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, because they were so worried about Saquon that, you
Right.
know, he carried the ball a good amount of times, but he didn't get a lot of yardage. But it really softened up the defense. And Hurts got his yardage rushing because Saquon exists.
Right. No, that's right. Look at the defensive stats here. Mahomes with a fumble and a fumble loss. That was a really critical part of the game when the Chiefs seemed like they were getting a little bit of momentum and starting to make some progress. And he had that strip sack, which really cost them again.
Mhm.
Eagles got a field goal off of that one too. Milton Williams on the Philadelphia side fumbled, but did not lose the ball, which obviously is always fortunate when you get the ball back. On the defensive side, Kansas City was led by Tranquil, who got 11 total tackles, including a sack. The only other sack was George Karlaftis, who's a really good player. You
Mhm.
can see the rest of the tackle stats there were just kind of all over the place. There was one interception on the Kansas City side. That was Brian Cook who picked that off. That was that errant throw that Hurts made that he probably shouldn't have thrown early in the game. On the defensive side for
Yeah.
Philly, you have Zach Bond, who had an interception along with Cooper DeJean,
Mhm.
who took it to the house. So they had 2 interceptions. The kind of player of the game for the Eagles was Josh Sweat. He was virtually unblockable.
He was awesome. Yeah.
He was unbelievable.
He was
Two and
awesome.
a half sacks, 6 tackles. Also Milton Williams, who was another one of their picks. All these guys are
Yep.
like 3 years or younger in the league.
Yep. They're
And they
all
were
on their
just
rookie contracts.
all eating.
They have to split the bill when they go out to dinner.
And Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, all these guys were in the last 3 drafts. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. The
You think about
output from these young guys is ridiculous. They're all
And
starters. They're all killing it.
we talked about all these guys in our draft special, and it's just wild
Yeah.
to see them, less than a year later just dominating.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the thing. Like, people are thinking they played out of their minds. They kept improving the defense throughout the season because they're young guys and they're learning.
right.
And sometimes the offense sputtered a little, especially when Saquon didn't have a huge day. But the last couple of games, Hurts really has played well, and that offensive line is elite. They're unbelievable, and the defense they're playing lights out. It really became evident that they were the best team, especially when you remove the Lions players at that rate.
Did you see that Josh Sweat also got 3 QB hits and Milton Williams got 1 QB hit? So these
Yeah.
guys, when they didn't get there, they were hitting it, and
There were
disrupting.
11 QB hits for the Eagles
Yeah.
on Mahomes. 11.
Right.
And there were 3 for the Chiefs.
Anything else you want to call out on the defensive side of the stats?
The sacks were incredibly important, and honestly, the timing of it was important. But it's interesting when Philadelphia is averaging three yards a rush, and KC's rushing 4.5. And the reason for that is not because they're running backs, but because of Mahomes taking off. And so it's, if you looked at that stat, you would think this game was either the Chiefs won or it was close, and
And then
it was.
another young guy I didn't mention is Jordan Davis, who had the 1 sack and the 1 hit. He's another one of the draft picks in the last 3 years. And
Yeah.
one name you don't see on here, who's probably their best player, is Jalen Carter. He's not even on the
Yeah.
stat sheet. So
Yeah, but that's crazy because he was in on a bunch of plays. He just didn't end up getting statistical.
that's what's so crazy is he was very disruptive, and yet he
He was,
doesn't show up on the stat
yeah,
sheet.
he was disruptive. I'm
Yeah, it
not going
looks
to
like
say
a
on every
reward.
play, but
Yeah.
for somebody who was sick all week, he did an amazing contribution.
But how deep is this defense?
It's deep. I mean, it's more talented than the Lions, but it might not be as deep because
Yeah.
the Lions had all their backups in.
But
And
do you think the
they were
Lions are going to look
beating
at this and realize they just need to load up on defense this year in the draft? I think
the
they are.
Lions or
Yeah.
the Eagles?
Lions.
No, I think the Lions starters are gonna be fine. They're gonna be healthy. They just, might need to tweak a few backups. Go get
Yeah.
a corner, a safety, and a linebacker or something.
You got to go get a Cooper
Edge rusher.
DeJean and maybe a Josh Sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the trick is you need Howie Roseman picking for you.
That's
So,
right. That's the problem. So we're going to look at the keys to the Eagles and keys to the Chiefs win. We talked about these last week in our preview show. And what we're going to do today, guys, is we're going to tell you which ones these teams achieved in their strategies and actually executed and which ones they did not. All right. So let's start with run, and run some more with Saquon Barkley. They did not achieve that. And the reason they didn't is because KC loaded up the box with 8 or 9 in the box.
yeah,
Any
but to
thought
me,
on
when
that
your
one?
quarterback runs 75 yards and gets a touchdown, that's part of your running game.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think they ran effectively. I mean, if you put Saquon and Hurts together, it is
125 yards or something like
yeah.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good amount of yards, and they were throwing the ball more than that. So it wasn't a fantastic yards per carry, but that didn't tell the story.
Mm-hmm. So you think they might have achieved this one? Maybe.
I think it was not quite run some more, but they ran the ball a lot with their quarterback and Saquon. Saquon got all the eyeballs and all the pressure from the defense. So I think they ran effectively and they ran a good amount and it was plenty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So next one is slow down and beat the blitz. There's no question they did that. You have one of the best blitzing teams in the last couple of years with Spags at the helm. They got 2 sacks, but that was about it. The pressures were way down from the Bills game.
Yeah.
And the Eagles' offensive line was just fantastic in this game. I mean, they really provided a nice
They whipped
pocket
them.
on almost every play. Yeah, they whipped them. So you can see there they get the check mark on that one. Comments on that?
No, absolutely. That was huge. I mean, that was huge. They were able to protect Hurts, and they were able to disrupt Mahomes.
So next one is set up play action. I said no on this one just because they already had such a clean pocket the whole game already, and it wasn't really because of play action.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think they set up play action or was it not? I said no on this one.
I think they did okay with it. It wasn't a huge part of what they needed to do. I probably would have maybe the way the game played out, I would remove that that factor because it wasn't as significant. Because they could have Hurts drop back, throw the ball effectively. He was not missing. And
Right.
then occasionally he'd take off running. It was a nightmare for the defense. You know?
I mean, he's got his 2 wide receivers one-on-one on both outsides. And that's a nightmare.
Nightmare. Even if you have the Chiefs secondary, which is a wonderful thing to watch.
So next one is feed A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that one?
Just Hurts was throwing a really nice ball, very catchable, accurate, not dangerous. He was getting time.
And you notice mostly to the sideline where only his guy could catch it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was his guy was catching it or it was incomplete.
Yep. That's right. Next one is make Mahomes uncomfortable.
Very.
I mean, when I put that out there last week, I thought to myself, they'll probably make him kind of uncomfortable. I had no idea. It would be an absolute onslaught.
Honestly, I felt comfortable that they were going to be able to do that. I felt confident. And then when that sickness tore through their locker room this week, I wasn't sure. I started to be a lot more like, well, who's going to be able to play? We don't know yet. It started to get a little iffy. But I think with their starters healthy, it might have been worse. Like they could have really been trouble.
This is not to take away from Hurts because he played fantastic, but I think of all the things they achieved out of these keys to the win, this is the biggest one. They not only made Mahomes uncomfortable, they made him subpar and not elite.
Yeah.
You can only be elite if you have some time. And he couldn't even score it out of the pocket like he usually does.
Yeah, he gets in a rhythm and he's real good when he's sort of cooking.
Like he throws well on the run and all that. He couldn't do any of that. There was none of that available.
No, he couldn't get it going.
Yeah. Next one is stuff the run and make the Chiefs one-dimensional. I think that goes without saying. And they had, 25 yards rushing? So there's no question they achieved that one. made them completely one-dimensional. And even that one dimension, they couldn't do very well.
Their leading rusher was Kareem Hunt, 3 for 9.
Exactly. So, yes, they did achieve
You're not going to
this
win the
one.
Super Bowl.
That's right. Next one is win the time of possession and convert third and fourth downs. The answer is yes. Matter of fact, they even scored a touchdown on a fourth down. So they won the time of possession and they converted their third downs and fourth downs. So the answer is they achieved that one. Wasn't sure if they could do that, but they did it. And the last one is Hurts pick up some first downs with his legs. And there's no question he did that. He had some really kind of killers that he picked up, like 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 7s, where he picked up some of those first downs, kept the chains moving, kept the drives going. So overall, other than the 2 run, and the setup play action, they achieved everything we said was going to make them successful, which is
And I think they did run some more. They just didn't unleash Saquon.
Yeah, because that was really geared towards Saquon.
But the truth is, the Chiefs had to pay a price for stopping Saquon. It wasn't
They
like
did.
a zero-sum game.
Yeah, they had to pay the feed Brown and Smith price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goddard,
And Goddard.
everybody got theirs. And Hurts ran for a lot of yards and a touchdown because he's athletic, very powerful.
That's right. So let's look at the Chiefs. This was their keys to a win. The first one was elaborate blitz packages. We saw them just pull these out the last couple of rounds in the playoffs and completely confuse and destroy plays that were being put against them, including the last play of the game against the Bills. This just didn't materialize in this game. The Eagles' offensive line was playing so well. And even on the key touchdown pass to Smith, Saquon Barkley made the key block there on a pass rusher. So,
yeah,
the blitz packages that Spags usually brings, he's the best in the business, didn't come in this game.
No question. It just didn't work.
So
Eagles' offensive line was too effective.
What were your thoughts about that? Were they going heavy jumbo? Were they keeping tight ends in? Was it just that they don't have the dogs that the Eagles have?
Yeah, it was a talent gap.
Yeah, I think so too.
It was a talent gap that you watched in execution.
Especially with Jones out in the second half.
Without Jones, they had no chance.
Yeah. Yeah, so they did not achieve this one. You agree with that? Next one is somewhat stop Saquon Barkley. I gave them this one. I think that their game plan was to limit him to under 100 yards and without a rushing touchdown.
The point of that comment is not just to stop Saquon, but let him beat you another way. It's to focus on Saquon, but still find a way to take everything else away. And they didn't do that. So I would have said, stop Saquon Barkley, but at what cost?
Right.
The cost
you have to say they did a pretty good job on him. If you're being objective.
Yeah. They did. They did. Yeah. He was averaging 2 yards a carry. So
I gave him that one. They didn't get very many, but they got that one.
I would say
get rid of the ball, including short passes. They couldn't even do screen passes.
It was a total fail.
It was
total
pathetic.
fail. Yeah. They had some decent stuff in the second half, but I'm not going to say that they had enough to win this game.
I was thinking that they needed to go to kind of the Peyton Manning, get the ball out in 1 second, short passes across the middle. Yeah. I don't know why they didn't go to that after the first quarter. I just don't get it. They just kept trying to do 5 and 7 step drops, which is devastating against a rush like that. And
I know.
I think a lot of it was game plan. I think some of this was on coaching. I really do.
And it was in-game play calling wasn't good.
Right.
Situationally, they weren't elite like they normally are.
Right. That's right. He got out-coached.
He didn't coach well that day.
That's right.
But his team of coaches didn't coach well.
So the next one is win the turnover and penalties battle. That didn't happen.
Yep.
And that's devastating in the Super Bowl. You throw a pick 6 and another pick and you have a strip sack.
Yep.
It's just, you can't have it and win the game against a really good team.
That's right.
So that was really devastating. Maximize your play calling advantage and open the playbook. I didn't feel like they did that at all. I didn't see anything innovative. I didn't see, trick plays out to the left or with wide open fullbacks. I didn't see, scheming Kelsey open in the second half. I don't know. Did you? Did you see anything with
A
the creativity of
little bit
Andy
here
Reid?
and there sprinkled around. It wasn't like they were in rhythm at any point for a long period of time. It was kind of herky-jerky offense, and sometimes it looked really good, but
I kept waiting for them to open it up after halftime and make all the adjustments, and I don't know, it just didn't feel like it to me. Next one is limit the tush push. I gave them a no on this, although really they only had 1 or 2
they had
chances, I
one.
think.
No, they had one, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not like they had a lot of opportunity, but on the one really critical one at the goal line, of course, they couldn't stop it. So
Yeah.
I gave them a no on that one. Bend but don't break, best red zone defense. I gave them a no. They gave up 2 out of 3, of course, and gave up a lot of field goals at times where they really couldn't afford more points.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a no on that one. And the final one is force Jalen Hurts to beat you. They did that. So they actually achieved that strategy. The problem is he beat you.
Yeah. The
He
problem
played
is
really well.
he was very efficient. He threw the ball really nicely.
Right. So you can see they got, 2 out of 8,
Yeah.
which is why they lost, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So this is our subscriber challenge number 1 this week, guys. We want to hear you guys. Please drop us a comment down below. The question is the Chiefs dynasty over? And is Mahomes going to get more rings? Of course, he's had the greatest start of any quarterback in history in the first 7 years. So it sounds even ridiculous to think about the Chiefs dynasty being over. However, when I heard Tom Brady talk about this after the game, and he's right, after he won his 3rd ring in 2004, it took him 10 years to get another one.
Yeah.
It took them 2 more team rebuilds, he said. Not just 1, 2 rebuilds to get there again. And so that's my question is Mahomes going to win more rings? What are your thoughts, Robbie?
I think it's possible. I think a lot depends on how long's Reed going to coach, because I think those 2 guys together are pretty special.
Well,
This
Kelsey's
reminds
about to retire, right?
this reminds me a lot of that Super Bowl where the Chiefs got whipped at the offensive line, and Mahomes looked really terrible.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that game. It was
It
so
felt like
clear
yeah.
that the trenches were determining how long the offenses and stuff had, to execute everything. The Lions won the game, and
I feel like the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs next year, but I don't think they're going 15-2. I do think they're going to take a little step back. I think Kelsey's likely to retire. They're going to take a little step back, and I think they're going to not be in rebuilding, but they're going to be in reloading mode. They're going to have to go through 1 or 2 more drafts to kind of get back to where they want to be. But Mahomes and Reed are too good to not be a
yeah, I
factor.
mean, Mahomes and Reed are so good together, and Reed is so good at swinging the strength of the team to another thing. So in the past, the Chiefs' defense wasn't great, and their offense won the Super Bowl. And then they got crushed in a Super Bowl, and then they regrouped for a little bit, and then they went and won it with defense.
Well,
So
not only is it so incredibly hard to get there, but he's got 4 or 5 possible Hall of Famers in the AFC that are sitting over there in his way.
yeah,
So I just think, I personally believe it may be a couple years before they get back. That's just my feeling on it. It's my gut feeling. So
well,
some of the
there's 32 teams. There's generally, not so much this year, but there's generally a lot of parity. Injuries will determine how effective you are. A lot of those close games get determined by talent, and so I mean,
yeah.
there's an opportunity for them to get back. I said that they weren't going to win 3 in a row because I think the likelihood of it is lower than the likelihood it's not going to happen.
Right. That's right.
So, do I think they're going back next year? Probably not. But they're
some
going
of
to
the
be good.
headlines
It's not like their dynasty is over. No, I wouldn't say that.
Some of the headlines that came out: no dynasty has crumbled in a Super Bowl like the Chiefs. Can they recover?
I don't agree with that.
Headlines. I think they can recover. I do think they're going to take a little step back next year, maybe even be a wild card team. But I do think they'll make the playoffs. Next headline is Kansas City Chiefs dynasty over after brutal Super Bowl loss? I don't know. If you go a couple of years without getting back to the Super Bowl, you have to say the dynasty's over. It doesn't mean they won't be a good team. It doesn't mean they won't be a competitive team, but we'll see. I'm really curious to see what they do next year and see if they're able to rebound or if it's going to take them a while to plug some of the holes they clearly have, especially on the offensive line.
I don't know that it would take a lot of pieces on the offensive line, but I think they need to prioritize it. In fact, don't be surprised if the Chiefs do some weird swing where they become more offensive again, where they're pounding, running the ball. And, that's what Reed does. He takes it and he totally changes his team and then they go back. And so
here's where he stands after 7 seasons against Tom Brady. Of course, that's who he's measuring himself against. Brady with 7 Super Bowl wins, Mahomes with 3. Brady with 5 Super Bowl MVPs, Mahomes with 3. In terms of overall MVPs, Brady with 3 and Mahomes with 2. First team All-Pro 3 and 2, and then Pro Bowls, Brady with 15 and Mahomes with 6. Any thoughts about kind of where he stands right now? I mean, I think he's, again, had the best first 7 years in NFL history.
It's really hard to say because longevity is something that can't be predicted. And Brady did it for so long. And he racked up such huge numbers. It's hard to extrapolate a younger player with smaller numbers. But if you could ever do it, this would be an example of where you could think that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's got, how long has he got Reed for? We don't know. But while he has Reed, he has a special coach who can really get the most out of the team most of the time and get them back to Super Bowls. So,
right.
and totally rebuild an offense, a part of the line, a part of the team that's not very strong. He can make it a strength the next year. And, I don't know other coaches that are so good at that. If you're usually a good offensive team, the next year you're a good offensive team again. You don't become a defensive team the next year. That's what Reed's doing with his team. So the offense wasn't very good this year in Kansas City, and I wouldn't be surprised if they become an offensive team next year. That's just, it swings like that wildly.
It's true. It's right. And every season is really different. Every team's very different.
I think their biggest challenge was not being able to run the ball. That's just my personal thing. They couldn't control the game, the clock. They couldn't. It put too much pressure on Mahomes, who might be the greatest quarterback of all time, or probably second. And they made him win too many games by himself. Like it just didn't make sense.
Well, guys, drop us a comment down below, please, and tell us, do you think the Chiefs dynasty is over? And do you think Mahomes will win any more rings, or is 3 going to be his max? Just let us know. So we have a subscriber challenge number 2 this week, and that is around the Eagles. And are they positioned to repeat next year? What do you think, Robbie?
Positioned to, yes. Yes,
because they're going to bring the whole team back. They have 25 guys on rookie contracts. That's unbelievable. I
know. They're positioned to do it because the talent of their roster is ridiculous. And
they have Howie Roseman. So
you have to go through the gauntlet, and winning a second one was really hard for the Chiefs. And winning a third one, I thought was impossible, and it ended up being impossible. But you got Roseman building a roster of young guys. If you become an uppity veteran who is going to get expensive and be injured all the time, you're gone, and you're going to be replaced by a rookie contract guy, and have it be a high achiever off Georgia, Alabama, the big programs who are factories. So,
you know what? I trust Roseman. That guy's an incredible executive.
I do too. He's earned it by what he's built. Yeah,
that's right. So the first headline here is Philadelphia Eagles have been labeled as dynasty killers or deniers. Now the team has prevented both the Patriots and the Chiefs from winning 3 consecutive Super Bowls. So pretty interesting that they ended both of those teams' dream to be the first one to ever do it. So what are your thoughts about them being the dynasty killers?
I mean, I would say you'd have to throw the Giants in there too. I mean, stopping Tom Brady's perfect season was pretty impressive.
Yeah, but all they're saying is that in terms of the 3 consecutive.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting concept.
So next one is Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, and the rest of their offense core remains intact next season.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it, right?
And
I
their
mean,
defense too. Most of their defense is young.
they're going to score a lot of points, and they're going to be really tough on defense. So,
It's wild when you hit on every one of your draft picks,
and they do.
and they do. And they
I
have
know.
3 years in a row.
The rest of NFC contenders have a lot more issues than they do. What are your thoughts about that?
Probably right. That's probably right.
Probably the
Although they're coming hard. Like they're coming up at them really tough. I mean, you don't tell me you don't think another draft for Washington is going to make them a more substantial contender?
Who do you think are the 2 or 3 teams that are nipping at the Eagles' heels right now?
Washington,
Washington for sure.
Detroit.
No doubt. Detroit.
Those two.
Maybe Minnesota.
Minnesota for sure. If they add a couple more pieces, I think that they could get there, especially
It looks
offense.
like they're going to hand the ball to J.J. McCarthy next year, so that'll be interesting to see how he blossoms.
It's a bit of a gamble, but it's based on a pretty good idea. So
They're worried that Darnold, in the big games, he's great in the
he's
regular
not-
season. But
yeah.
they're worried that he can't handle it there. So next one is they have GM Howie Roseman to help them reload. I think that's probably the biggest one. Think about him with another draft.
Yeah.
They have 7 picks this year, and he's probably going to
Yeah.
hit what, 5 of them?
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. They definitely have a chance to repeat. I think someone's going to have to knock them off. The last one is Super Bowl 60 next year. The odds have come out, and the Eagles open as the favorites to repeat in 2026. Of course, that's very early, but even Vegas thinks that they're the most likely to repeat. So drop us a comment down below if you guys think the Eagles are positioned to repeat and have a good chance at it. Let us know.
I think we'll have more parity next year. We'll have more than 3 new teams in the playoffs. All these young quarterbacks are coming out, are really prepared and ready, so they immediately make their teams better. So that's always real interesting. And so it's hard to say the Eagles will be this good next year with the chemistry and the clicking, but I don't see why they wouldn't be. Like I can't think of how they're going to get worse.
I do think there's some teams in the NFC that will get better. I think the Lions will get better. The 49ers are not going to be as bad as they were this year. They're going to get a little better,
The Lions are going to be better because their starters are going to be healthy and coming back. So
right. The Commanders are going to be better.
Yeah.
Rams are pretty darn good. So I don't know. We'll see. See if they can do it. So let's talk about the controversial Super Bowl halftime show with Kendrick Lamar. This was a star-spangled hat and jacket show. Hollywood legend Samuel L. Jackson played the host as Uncle Sam to announce the multiple award-winning rapper Kendrick Lamar for the halftime show. It's a kind of interesting choice there of having Uncle Sam played by Samuel L. Jackson, the famous actor. So interesting. Flavor Flav had a comment. The whole stadium just yelled A minor, which is a really funny line from one of his songs. And it actually is referring to Drake, who has a real legal issue right now around being a pedophile or not being a pedophile. Drake is actually suing Kendrick Lamar right now for this line in his song. So it's funny that the whole stadium yelled it and actually knows the song. I have to tell you, Robbie, watching this show, I've never felt so old in my life.
Me too.
I felt I did not know one song. I didn't understand one word of it.
But I will tell you,
it was visually beautiful. It was visually beautiful.
Yeah, it was nice. It was such a blessing. I got to watch it with my 9-year-old twin boys who are really connected in on pop culture now. And it was so funny when they go mustard and they knew it and their faces lit up and they were so excited. And I said, okay. I mean, I don't know it. And I don't know much about that, but they make me play this stuff in the car and they were excited and it was really cool for them. So it was generational,
So what do you do to try to get all generations to like it? I don't think you can, right? Like if you had a group that,
No, I
let's say
think that
Dad
is
were
what
like,
you do. I think that is what you do. You try to get more genres involved.
that's what I was
You
thinking. Is why
include
don't you have
different
3 artists?
decades.
Why don't you have 3 artists all have 7 minutes each?
Yeah.
And then have Kendrick Lamar and then have, I don't know, Aretha Franklin and then somebody else. You know what I mean? Like,
And then like a rock, like Nickelback
Yeah,
or something. Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
yeah. So I don't know. I find that interesting, but yeah, I felt so old watching this show, and I know a lot of music, and you do too.
Yeah.
So, next one was "Wait for the Moment" when Taylor Swift shouted A minor. Apparently, she did it too out of the crowd.
Hmm.
So it's pretty funny. Theo Vaughn thought it was a very boring halftime show. Did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
Uh, and then this was a comment. Apparently, a lot of people on phones uninterested. Viral
I saw
tweet
I saw a lot
slammed.
of video of fans in the stands not into the show at all.
Right, right. So it was panned pretty hard. I mean, I think hardcore rap people really liked it,
Yeah, I
but
don't
for
think
the
it was
most,
bad. I just don't I think it was missing something.
if you were over 30, you pretty much were either bored, turned it off, went for a walk, or did something else.
But for
Um,
anybody out there who's trying to figure out this halftime show, I wish you could have seen my 2 sons'
yeah,
faces.
right, because they
When
liked it.
certain parts of the songs would come on, they'd be like, "Oh," it was so cool for them. So that made
Yeah.
me really happy because
I
I
did
knew I
like
didn't
that it
know.
was. I did like that it was red, white, and blue, and that it was kind of a patriotic thing. I did like that, and I liked that
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson was Uncle Sam. That was pretty cool
Yeah, I think for me, Samuel L. Jackson was kinda the coolest part, just
for
it was
sure.
different, but
So here's a little image of what it looked like with Kendrick Lamar in front of the red, white, and blue dancers.
yeah, it was cool.
Ben Stiller, the actor, said it was the best halftime show ever, which was very different than most of the tweets I saw online that
I would
really
say
did
that's
not like
recency
it.
bias, as at its core. Like, by
Yeah.
definition, recency bias.
For me, I love U2, and so the U2 show about 10 years ago was
For
my
me,
favorite.
Prince in the Rain
Prince,
was
that was good. That was really good.
unbelievable.
Whitney Houston was great. Venus Williams was calling out her sister Serena, who was actually in the show. She actually was in this show. So
Yeah.
she said, "You did that." And then Serena said, "Let's go Super Bowl halftime." I died a little, meaning she was really excited because she got to be part of it. She did essentially a dance in one of the numbers.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It was visually really cool, and I'm glad some people enjoyed it. I do think it was very controversial. My advice to the committee next time would be, get 3 different genres and merge them together somehow, and that way you'll get all the different generations. Because if you were over 30, you
Yeah.
just didn't understand this. You couldn't understand one word of it, and, it's not like it was enjoyable music or anything, but visually it was pretty stunning. So, any
It
other
was
comments
okay.
on it?
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, it was good. So, next thing is Josh Allen named MVP for 2025. I know you thought he was about 3rd or 4th in the
Yep, probably about
reality,
4.
but he, was moved to tears after Buffalo Children's Hospital, which is his charity, by the way. Apparently, he raises a lot of money for them.
Mhm.
Congratulated him on his MVP season. That was really cool. I think he's a really good guy, so that's a good thing. And he said, "I love my team," when he took the trophy. So that's cool that he was trying to make it kind of a team award, even though it's an individual award. So any thoughts about Josh winning his first?
Well, he had a fantastic season, so it's kinda like when 4 huge movies come out the same year and one of them gets the Oscar and the other 3 don't. It doesn't mean anything. So, if the competition is good enough, but I think he was very elite overall this year. I think they used his talents better than they have in the past year, so I'll give some credit to his coaches, bringing the best out of him, letting him do a little bit less and do it better, protecting the ball a little more, and really propelling his team to a level that's not they're not full of talent. That team is just a steady team that's going to be building over years. But he
Do you
won a
think he
lot of games.
do you think he can still get better? He's only 27. I think he can
I
still get
do.
better.
I think he can get
Yeah.
smarter with the ball and better at running the offense. But athletically, he's at his peak
Yeah,
in terms
for
of
sure.
running the ball and scrambling around and hitting people on the run.
So some of the other award winners here, of course, he got MVP, but Saquon got Offensive Player of the Year, which he definitely deserved. You thought he should actually be the MVP. I did too. Um, Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain for the Broncos. He had a fantastic season.
Yeah.
The Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels, definitely deserved. Played great.
Mhm.
The Defensive Rookie of the Year, we both also thought he deserved it. Jared Verse. He's just an absolute
Oh yeah,
monster. The
he's a
guy's
beast.
unbelievable. Um, And then the comeback player of the year after his injury was Joe Burrow.
Oh yeah.
But that was pretty cool.
I thought
Coach
he
of the
really
year,
might have deserved MVP actually.
possibly, but again, I don't think a losing team will ever get his guy nominated. Maybe it's not fair, but
He was winning games that they had no business winning games.
it's true. I really pray that he gets an offensive line next year. But
Yeah. Well, I've been saying that for 6
and a
years.
defense. I mean, their defense is total trash.
Or
So.
however many years he's been in, 5 years.
The coach of the year kind of surprised me. I'm not saying he's not deserving, but I didn't see Kevin O'Connell getting coach of the year. Although maybe he did deserve it. He did a lot with that team, and they had a
He
really
took
good
a good team and he made them
14
great.
and 3. Yeah.
Yeah. He made them great in a short time, so he did a nice job.
And then assistant coach of the year, Ben Johnson. That doesn't surprise me. They had a really great season. And of course, he goes on to now be the coach of the Bears. So, any thoughts or surprises on any of these 8
No,
awards?
they're
Other than
well deserved. I think you could have gone with any one of the 4 movies, if you're going to give the Oscar out. So the quarterbacks all did well. The MVPs all did well, candidates. But they just, I think it was the perfect year for Allen to get it.
so, it's interesting you say that. I was reading that exact analogy about this choice between all these great quarterbacks and Saquon. The year that Saving Private Ryan came out, everyone assumed they were going to win Best Picture. They
Mhm,
won 14 awards, 14
mhm.
awards, but they did not win Best Picture. They came in second. Do you know what they came in second to?
Was it Forrest Gump?
Shakespeare in Love.
Shakespeare in Love. Yeah,
You talk about 2 movies that were diametrically different. One is a Shakespeare
that's
movie.
insane. That's insane.
Shakespeare in Love wins it, and Saving Private Ryan, who I think should have won it. I think it's the greatest movie ever, but
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing. Like you said, you're choosing between 4 or 5 really deserving guys who
yeah.
all could win it.
You could
I
easily
mean
make the case for a number of people.
I mean,
So
Lamar could have easily won his 3rd. I mean, there's no
yeah,
reason he couldn't have. He had the
yeah,
stats for it.
yeah.
All right, let's look at the memes. We got some good ones this week. First one is Tom Brady was 7-3 in the Super Bowl, and he walked off the field in the 4th quarter with the lead in all 10 games, which is incredible to me. In his 3 losses, he lost on a last possession, kind of last minute of the game type of field goal situation. How crazy is that? He had a lead in all 10 games when he walked off the field in the 4th quarter.
That's wild.
Whereas Patrick Mahomes is 3-2, and in his 2 losses, he got absolutely blown out and bludgeoned. So,
I
any
don't ever
thoughts?
remember. I don't ever remember. If I'm right, I don't ever remember a Patriots team's offensive line that wasn't at least great or higher.
Yeah, so what is your
Um,
theory here? Why is it that the Patriots, I mean, he did lose 3 times, but really it wasn't his fault. He left the
the,
game with a lead.
the Chiefs,
Yeah.
the Chiefs need to address the offensive line a little bit more. They always have a group that's sort of thrown together and they make it work. And I think
Yeah.
that's a dangerous way. I mean, I can't criticize them too much. They just won 2 in a row, going for 3. And if you make the Super Bowl, you are a very elite team.
I mean,
But I do think that they had a little bit of holes when they ran into an elite defense.
how do you think Brady feels about that? The fact that his 3 losses, he did everything he could and walks out the field with a lead, and his
I
defense
think he
couldn't hold.
doesn't know half of what Joe Burrow feels because
His defense couldn't
he's
hold.
he can't win. He can't play defense. You know what I mean?
Including the one game against the Giants where the guy makes the miracle catch against the back of his helmet on a 4th down. I
Yeah,
mean, you know, that would
yeah,
have been a win too. He would have been 8-2.
yeah,
So I don't know. This is really interesting to me. When Mahomes loses, he loses pretty bad. I mean, even in the game he lost to Burrow,
yeah.
lost that game by 2 touchdowns. So I don't know. It's interesting. Next one is this was Shady McCoy saying, "When I see Shador, I see Joe Burrow." So is that the first person you thought of when you saw Shador play this year?
Not really. I don't know about a comp for him. I got to think about that one because I didn't see a comp that I really felt comfortable with.
I do think he's going to be a good player.
Absolutely,
I really do.
I do too. I think he's going to be a combination of a couple guys.
Yeah, that's a big compliment. If he's going to be Joe Burrow, that's a
Oh
big
yeah,
compliment.
you know how I feel about Burrow. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the way he plays. So
I'd be interested to see why he says that. I wish I could talk to him. Wish we could bring him on the show.
I think he's talking about his winning qualities, his off, his intangibles. I think that's
Yeah,
what he's
maybe.
talking about. He's
Maybe because, I
cool
mean,
as a cucumber. He's a winner. He's just does a good job.
interesting. So next one is the top 5 recruiting classes coming into this next college football season. Are there any surprises that it's Texas 1, Georgia 2, Alabama 3, Ohio State 4, and Oregon 5? Are there any surprises?
No, I mean, even the order isn't that surprising. It just kind of, you could flip flop them all. I don't know.
I mean, it's crazy to see these mammoth teams with these huge NIL collectives, all kinds of money to spend. And, we want parity in college football. Are we going to get it really when you have these teams all bringing in the 5 stars? I don't know.
I think so because the talent's spreading around wider because all your backups are fleeing for money.
Yeah.
So there's no team that has 5 deep All-Americans in every position. So yeah, it's going to continue to have more and more parity.
Doesn't feel like the rich get richer though.
Yes, but I think less so than it used to be.
Like if you're trying to rebuild Florida State or you're trying to rebuild Clemson or you're trying to rebuild one of these kind of programs that have been there before and you're facing this all the time, like it's just tough.
Yeah.
It's
True.
tough. Next one was interesting. Luke Kuechly didn't get in. Luke Kuechly, he was a dog, said Deion Sanders. So he was
Yeah.
really kind of in disbelief that Kuechly didn't get first balloted into the Hall of Fame this year. He didn't get inducted, assuming that he probably will one day. But the fact that he wasn't a first-time Hall of Famer. Any
I think
thoughts about?
a lot depends on what you're up against, I think.
Yeah.
Some people are deep in multiple years where they didn't get in. They're going to be a priority. So,
Well, I went and read the article, and he said he
sometimes it's
thinks
just luck.
I went and read the article. He said he thinks Kuechly was the second best middle linebacker ever.
Oh,
So,
I'm pretty sure he's going in. It's just first ballot. I think first ballots should be pretty rare,
right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I was really happy to see Deion have all this respect for Luke. So pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next one is you talked about this, Robbie. The last 5 drafts for the Eagles. Take a look at this. 2024: Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Jalix Hunt. All those guys had a huge day
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yep.
2 years ago was Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. Both had a huge
Unbelievable.
day yesterday.
They're unblockable.
3 years ago, Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgers, and Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
They just hit.
Yeah.
In 2021, it was Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, and Milton Williams. All had a huge day yesterday.
Yeah.
And then 5 years ago was Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, has anyone had a run like this as a GM?
I mean, not really. It's unbelievable. That's why I picked him to win, because when you can draft like that, you can be playing your best football at the end of the year, and you have young guys. Young guys tend to get hurt less, and you go into the Super Bowl with your dogs. And
So what are other GMs learning from this? I mean, like this is why they're holding up the trophy right now.
they need to figure out a way to assess talent like he does.
Yeah.
Instead of going with the hot name and have the guy fizzle out, he's picking stars
It's
that
funny.
aren't necessarily the top ranked,
It's funny. I remember they were criticizing him for going to get Jalen Carter because the year before he went and got Jordan Davis, both from
Yeah.
Georgia.
Mhm.
And he said, you can't have enough dogs. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, why did you get him? You got Jordan Davis last year. Well, I mean, you can see why now. They're just
Yeah.
completely dominant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was interesting to look at their last 5 drafts. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So next one is the only QBs to beat Mahomes in the playoffs. You've got, of course, Hurts did it yesterday. You have Burrow did it a couple of years back, and then, of course, Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So thoughts about this elite club that have actually beaten Mahomes in the playoffs?
I mean, it's a great group, and I think all 3 were different cases and examples, but all 3 were talented on both sides of the ball, and Cincinnati slipped a lot on defense since then. But if they could build that side back up, they could make a run.
Guess who you don't see there?
Ravens?
Lamar,
Yeah.
and Josh Allen.
Right.
So those guys,
Yep.
I mean, Mahomes is always in their way all the time.
Yep. You're right.
So they have nightmares about Mahomes.
Yeah.
So next one is the Carson Wentz trade. Take a look at this, Robbie. They traded Carson Wentz to the Colts, and they got back in return Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Jalen Carter, and Cooper DeJean.
Unbelievable.
Can you believe that?
No. Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. That is GM of the year. Has to
Yeah.
be.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't believe when I saw that. This is the playing on that logo controversy we talked about earlier. NFL knows we've caught on to their Super Bowl logo script. So now they threw in a bunch of colors into next year's logo. You got all the teams represented there.
That's funny. It's pretty accurate. Not to, we don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah, that's right. So now Super Bowl 60, you got everybody represented.
Yeah.
Pretty funny. So next one, pretty interesting. NFL fans are slamming Fox's new over feature for the Super Bowl 59. They want to see it changed immediately. And that was the KC and the PHI. The graphics, everybody was saying, was just horrible in this game. And it kind of was. I actually noticed it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It
It
was
seemed
weird.
like really subpar production. And
Yeah.
Fox usually does a really good job, too. It just seemed very amateur, and it seemed very kind of thrown together at the last minute.
It didn't.
And
It didn't look like state of the art equipment and stuff.
right. And it's just, I don't know. Do you think that some of these networks are cutting back, or
Mm.
like, what is it? I don't
Sometimes
know.
you swing and you miss, man. I don't know.
It wasn't good. The production value was not good.
It wasn't great.
Yeah. The next one is you sent me this one. Chiefs fire their refs
Yeah. That's silly.
after losing the game. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Next one, this is pretty good little graphic showing Saquon helping up his giant self up from the ground, and then of course the Super Bowl trophy being there. Kind of a cool representation of his career and how and why he wanted to move to a contender, right? Felt a little bit like he was mired in a team that wasn't going anywhere for a long time and was rebuilding.
It felt a lot like McCaffrey with the Panthers.
Yes, it did. It really did. So he said he did miss some things about being with the Giants, but obviously very happy to be with a great team now. So pretty cool graphic there. This one was funny. Imagine putting this fit back on after putting up 39 yards and 0 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. He did look like a 70s pimp. I'm not sure what look he was going for here.
I think he wanted to be a topic of conversation.
Did you notice his style has changed a lot since he met Taylor Swift? I mean, he didn't used to be like this. He used to just be a normal guy with jeans, and
that's right.
He's completely changed. This one's funny. Taylor Swift and Cooper DeJean breaking the news to Travis after the game tonight. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
This one's marked safe from the Chiefs three-peat. That's how most people in the country felt. Tom Brady in 10 Super Bowls, 21 TDs and 6 interceptions. Mahomes in 5 Super Bowls, half as many, 10 TDs and 7 interceptions. So that's pretty interesting that in half the games he already has more interceptions. Any thoughts about why that would be?
He's a gunslinger.
Yeah. He had that problem early in his career, and I thought he'd gotten rid of it. But
but when you ask him to do as much as he is, I think his bad tendencies are going to come back a little bit.
It came back yesterday. Yeah.
Well, that's because of pressure. I mean, if you had given him a little more time, he would have done something magical. So.
Right. It's just interesting how careful Tom Brady was with the ball. I mean, you don't appreciate it enough, I think, how careful he was with the ball. Kenny Pickett with a Super Bowl and these 5 guys to the right. 0
I
Super
love that one. That's funny.
That's hilarious.
That is funny.
All those guys who've been in the league for all those years, MVPs.
Yeah.
This one was a great shot of him smoking a cigar, Jalen Hurts, holding the Super Bowl trophy. How good do you think that felt in the locker room?
Yeah, that was fun.
Just be staring at that trophy and say, I finally did it. pretty good. All right, man, I'm going to hand it over to you. Two graphics I want to point out here. First one is congratulations to the United States for remaining undefeated in Super Bowls, 59-0.
That's silly.
That's pretty good.
That's a
And then
good one.
also,
Yeah, I like that one.
and then for us suffering football fans already a day later, there's only 7 months, 7 days, 10 hours, 53 minutes, and 9 seconds until the 2025 football season begins. So
It does
have
feel
faith.
like
Have faith. You'll get through the 7.5 months. It'll be painful, but we'll get there. So,
yeah.
what you got for us?
Well, first of all, thanks for the silly photo. It's middle of the road today.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm about to say something.
Yep. You're thinking.
So we got a couple of mailbags. Thanks for everybody who's reached out and sent us some comments. We have the halftime show lineup is stacked. Kendrick and Za are going to kill it. Cletus Briscoe. So that's obviously a generational thing, and there are a lot of people who felt like that it did happen. So I think also it's in the eye of the beholder. Maybe some of the Super Bowl halftimes that we enjoyed and that stand out in our mind were mediocre to the older generations. So,
I mean, my kids thought it was really cool. They're 25 and 22. They thought it was super cool, but they like
That's right.
rap
That's
culture.
right.
So
Yeah.
I don't understand it. When I look at it, I can't understand one word. I don't know any of the songs. I don't understand what they're trying to portray.
I think they should have done more genres. Nothing wrong with Kendrick Lamar, but get, Aerosmith out there with him or something.
Right. No doubt.
All right. Next one. So anyway, thank you, Briscoe, I mean. The Chiefs defense will need to contain Barkley to have a chance at Gilbert. Obviously that speaks to the mindset, the thinking that if you just stop Saquon, then you have a chance. Well,
and by the way, that's what Spags put in. That was the defense he put in, and it worked. My question to you, though, Robbie, is did that going all in to stop Saquon, did that hurt their pass rush? I think it did.
Absolutely. But I think not as much as losing Chris Jones during the game.
Well, yeah.
I mean, he's so unblockable that when he goes down, your whole team takes the air out of the balloon,
Yeah, right.
All right. So anyway, thank you, Gilbert. Eagles revenge time at Malamer. Yeah, I'd say they got some revenge.
I think there was definitely some of that in this game. I mean, I think Hurts and the whole team really remembered what it felt like a couple of years ago, walking off the field, losing to Mahomes after having a 10-point lead at halftime. There's no question there was some revenge factor there. Absolutely.
You know what was wild? Sirianni's speech was a lot like Tony Bennett's speech for Virginia basketball. When he was saying that failure can be a special ticket to go somewhere. I can't remember the
you couldn't go otherwise. Yeah,
you couldn't go otherwise if you didn't lose, because you wouldn't be as motivated and driven and angry and putting your headphones on and working out. You get more work done when you lose. You get more motivated. You're listening harder in the team meetings. Teams that win get a little cocky. I don't care what sport it is. They get a little confident, like coaching me hard right now makes no sense because we're winning. And the next thing you know, you're on the losing end and they're getting rid of you. So they did it. They did a good job, and they stuck together through a lot of adversity over the couple of years. They had their coach being threatened to be fired, or it seemed in the media that was calling for him to why is he still there? So you got any thoughts? Any other thoughts?
No, I completely agree. Everything you said there.
All right. Last one. Eagles will win the Super Bowl. Donetta Chadwick. Thanks, Donetta. I think they did it very convincingly.
Yep, Donetta, you're absolutely right. You nailed it. You picked it. Rob also picked it. He said by 10 points or more. So he
it had to be by more than two scores or more.
I said Chiefs by 3 only because the only time I've ever bet against the Chiefs was against the Bills last week, and I was burned. And so I
Mm.
told myself I would never bet against him. Last year, I picked them to beat the 49ers, and Rob picked the 49ers. So
Yep.
I was not going to pick against Mahomes again. I was a little queasy about this one because I
Yeah.
know how good the Eagles roster is, but I just felt like if they could keep it close, give Mahomes the ball with 3-4 minutes left in the game, he would go down and win it.
I
And
think the only team that can hang with an Eagles team that plays like that in the whole league is the Lions with their starters in.
probably so.
Yeah, that would be the game that you'd
I
want
mean,
to
the
watch.
Commanders beat them earlier in the year, but they didn't play like that. That was
Well,
crazy.
I spoke to that earlier about how this wasn't the same players that started the year. They're all rookies and second years. Like they're growing as we watch them
Yeah.
play each
I mean,
game.
you saw those last couple of drafts. That's crazy.
Yeah,
It's absolutely
yeah.
crazy.
Most of the team is from those drafts. Not most of the
That's
team,
right.
but the important players on the team are very young.
So, Robbie, how does it make you feel about 7 months, 7 days, et cetera, until football season begins? How does it make you feel as we're
Sad.
heading? This is our last broadcast for a while.
Yeah, last football.
Yeah, last football broadcast.
Sad. Hopefully we'll have a big summer and let's fall in love with college basketball and get ready for spring stuff. So
Actually, we have a lot of good stuff coming you guys' way. We've got
we do.
college lacrosse, and we've got baseball, and we've got college baseball, and we have a lot of cool programs coming your way. We have another cool and strange sports coming your way as well.
Yeah, we've
We
got
have
some material that we've been kind of holding back. So we are, there's been so much to cover with all these amazing college football, NFL, and so much going on that we haven't been able to sprinkle in our ideas on some of the other stuff. So this will be a blessing, is having a little more space to bring in some of the ideas we've had for quite some time.
And then really in a couple of weeks, I guess about 8 weeks, we have the draft. So it's not like it's not going to be any football talk. There's still going to be off season to cover.
We'll always sprinkle it in some.
And you have free agency, and you've got a lot of stuff that happens in the off season. So we'll definitely sprinkle that in.
Yeah.
But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this ride with football season as much as we have. It's finally come to an end, and we'll look forward to and be pumped for the next one. And thank you guys for riding with us. It's been so much fun to bring it to you every week. Final thoughts, Robbie, on the Super Bowl?
We hope everybody enjoyed the Super Bowl. I did. I got to watch it with my boys, and we appreciate all the comments out there. And have a wonderful week. We'll see you guys really soon.
Absolutely. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. And like you heard from Rob, we got a lot of great stuff coming your way. We have a real good episode next week and beyond. So please be looking for those. And otherwise, thanks for everything. And we'll see you next time on the Sports Guys. Have a good one.
See ya.